crazy gamers, it's Maniacal. No one asked, but here's what I think about Sonic Frontiers: The Final Horizon. Now, I know it's been about a month since it came out, and we all have probably moved on from it, but after doing 3 playthroughs of it, I wanted to share what I liked and didn't like about it. And just in case, I'll say that this will be spoilerish, but if you don't care about that and are interested in what I have to say, I hope you enjoyed the video. So originally, I had thought that this DLC would be like us playing the entire game, but in the other character's perspective. Like we're on Kronos Island playing as Amy and seeing what she has to go through in cyberspace while Sonic was running around collecting the emeralds. I'm happy to say that wasn't the case. It instead is a redo of Ouranos Island, which I felt was the weakest part of the game. And what you're basically doing is playing as Sonic's friends and helping find the emeralds. And then you're playing as Sonic doing these trials to essentially harness the power of cyberspace in order to defeat the last Titan. Now, already this is a big plus, as this one felt more engaging than the original island, which felt like a chore to get through. One thing I really liked about this DLC was that they touched more on Starfall Islands and the Ancients, basically more world building. Like there's this one about how Sonic is the only one that sees the grind rails, and Sage says she doesn't see anything even though she's looking right at it, or how the Ancients would stack the stones for competitions. And there's even one that talks about the Titans and why they look the way they do. So I just like that we got to learn more about this world. As for the playable characters, first off, I love the adventure game, so I was excited that they were bringing that back. But with this update, I felt like they were mostly for exploring rather than fighting. You can fight, but I never felt like fighting with any of them, because anytime I wanted to fight the Guardians, I would end up just running away because it just didn't feel right in my opinion. And each character has a skill tree, but they're all pretty much the same. Like you have a Psyloop, a boost, a stomp, and an attack. But unlike Sonic, these attacks don't really flow well together, so I mainly use Sonic for fighting. Amy, I think, is the best playable character. Like she feels well balanced and easy to control. She uses these tarot cards that were at first kind of weird to me because I thought she'd be using her hammer, but she still felt good to play with her high jumps and the card float. And then when you get her max boost, her cards transform into this bike and you can drift, which I never got why Sonic never had one because they did a really good job with the drift mechanics. But platforming with her was good because everything about it worked. I think they did a really good job with her movements, and it made collecting her viewpoints and skill points a breeze. Knuckles, to me, wasn't as bad as many people said when they played him. But at the same time, I do agree as to why they didn't enjoy him. I don't know why SEGA didn't make him the same as he was in the adventure games, because he moved smoothly and was easy to control. But for some reason here, it's just not the case. He can only climb on surfaces that are colored red, and his climbing animation is just as janky and frustrating as Sonic's wall run. And his glide has this delay, like he's charging up, and I don't know why. When you fully upgrade it, it's a little better because you move faster and there's no descent as you fly over time. But even so, when you're trying to move around places, the turns are very sensitive. There have been times where I'm flying in a straight line, and when I move just like a teeny bit to the left or right, Knuckles just freaks out and goes off course, and I have to circle around and do it again. But traveling around the island with him was better than Amy, so for most of his playthrough, I was just gliding around without having to bother with most of his platforming. Now, Tails, in my opinion, is the worst of the 3. For starters, he doesn't have a homing attack, and I don't know why. If Amy and Knuckles have a homing attack, then Tails should too. It's awkward because you have to actually go and touch the spring in order to use it. And like Knuckles, for him to fly, he needs to charge it up too. I'm not sure why this delay and charge up is necessary for both of them, but the only good thing about Tails is that when you get the Cyclone, you're literally cruising his portion of the game. Like this is the ultimate cheese. I never figured out all his platforming levels and never felt the need to because I had this. I just do the infinite loop and then fly from point A to point B. Really the only thing I enjoyed about Tails' playthrough. So earlier I mentioned how I use Sonic for all the fighting, and that's because this DLC is not easy. I played on hard, and while I didn't find it too difficult, I felt that spike compared to the original game. With the Guardians at first, they seemed impossible, but they're really not that bad. They just have different tactics in fighting them, and I actually found them quite fun to play against. Like, Ghost is a lot better, actually easier in this update. It's just platforming, it's fairly simple, and Ghost only drains your rings. It doesn't try to attack or constrict you. Spider, you don't have to do the skydiving, but instead just side loop those explosives it spawns. Master Ninja was, in my opinion, the most fun to fight because I liked how it was fast-paced combat and I had to parry and counter quickly. Honestly, wouldn't mind more combat like this in future Sonic games. And speaking of future Sonic games, I absolutely need more of the cyberspace levels from this DLC because these are by far the best levels out of all of cyberspace. And this is coming from someone who genuinely enjoyed cyberspace in general. The level designs are creative and open, and they encourage you to use the spin dash, and when you do, it's so satisfying to see Sonic just soar through these levels. And when you're coming up with ways to speedrun them and trying to get that S rank and succeeding in the end, it's super rewarding. Plus the music, oh my god, the music. They're remixes of previous levels and they are so good. I would love it if SEGA made a remix of all the levels just for the heck of it, because they go hard. I am super happy my favorite one, Wishes in the Wind, got a remix. So with these levels, I thought it was interesting that rather than collecting red rings, you'll have different objectives like bringing animals to safety, finding the hidden goal, finding moon or number medals. But in order to achieve them, you have to reach the goal at the end, and there are no checkpoints. So if you fall off and die, you have to start over from the very beginning of the level and try again. It can get very frustrating, and I got frustrated a lot my first try. And the reason is because, again, these levels are so big, it's so hard to find where anything is on top of making sure you get to the goal without dying. But I thoroughly enjoyed them and would love to see more of these designs, these ideas in the future. So for each objective achieved, you're rewarded with lookout cocos, which you need to climb up these trial towers, and these were not fun my first try. I didn't think they were completely unfair, but what made it hard was the way they were designed and laid out. Like what is this? What is this? And how do I go about this, and why is this like this? Rather than speeding through it, I just took my time with it, so besides just the weird layout, I didn't have any issues regarding the platforming. But at the top of the towers, yeah, I've got some things to say. These Coco Trials are where the problems with balancing come in. The first, third, and fourth trial are easy. It's doable in one try. But the second trial is a head scratcher, because how am I supposed to do this within a short amount of time? These guardians already require a bit of time to defeat on their own, but putting them in this challenge is ridiculous. There are two ways of doing it, but it doesn't change just how stupid it is. Now I can already hear people saying skill issue, which I'm getting real sick and tired of hearing. This has nothing to do with skill, okay? It all comes down to poor level design, because the third and fourth trial, you're able to defeat these guys in like a minute, but they give you 10 minutes. Why? Why are you giving me so much time to defeat enemies that aren't that challenging? And why are you giving me a short amount of time to defeat enemies that take a bit of time? How is spamming this skill? And let's not forget about the good old Master Coco Trial. Everyone had a lot to say about this, so let me throw in my thoughts as well. Now, I don't have a problem with fighting the Titans. They're not that hard. And I've done playthroughs where I kept Sonic stats at level 1, so I didn't mind having that for this trial. And only having 400 rings, I don't really mind either. My problem is that these bosses are not designed for the perfect parry. Now, I'm glad they added perfect parry. I actually wish this was something that was in the game already. And I'm no expert when it comes to game designs and such, but I'm pretty sure these battles weren't structured around a perfect parry. If you're playing it on hard, like me, you have to be exact. And it's a lot harder than you think because the exact time and moment to parry is very misleading. Like here with Wyvern, when you parry, it doesn't even look like it's touching you. But if you do it before or after that exact frame, then you're screwed. The only time the perfect parry worked correctly with these fights were with Wyvern's missiles and Knight's shield. So I don't know why the projectiles responded well with perfect parry, but the attacks didn't. I've done playthroughs where I would time the parry and treated it as if it were a perfect parry, but after this trial, I could tell that I was completely wrong with when I was supposed to do it. Because again, they were designed around an infinite one. So really, when I was learning how to complete this challenge, it was solely based on memorizing the exact image of how these titans looked when you parried rather than when they attacked you. But despite how frustrating and ridiculous this challenge was, I will say I was glad I could battle the titans again back to back. Because let's be real, these battles slap harder than Wyvern's attack patterns, but it's just, I just wish they had polished this more to where the perfect parry worked properly. Because as in my second and third playthrough, I felt nothing but dread just thinking about how long it would take for me to complete it. And believe me, it took several tries in all playthroughs on hard, even though I knew what to do. So after completing a very aggravating challenge, you fight Supreme in like a second, and then it's the final battle. Now, I would argue that this fight can be more frustrating than the Master Coco trial. It's one thing to know something and having trouble doing it. It's another to know absolutely nothing and getting nowhere despite doing everything. That's pretty much this fight. The first time, I spent a long portion of the fight attacking the head because it automatically targets it, and I struggled trying to attack the plug on the neck, and nowhere in the game before this moment did it tell me that to switch your target, you have to press the dodge button. Never had I felt the need to switch a target until this fight, so why wasn't I told? And then at some point you have to side loop the gun tucked away in Supreme's back and then side loop the sun again to progress to the next stage of the fight. But again, I was forced to target the head, so I wouldn't have known because the game was telling me, hey, attack this. Not, oh, hey, you actually have to attack this. Okay, maybe that was obvious, but I was distracted by Kellen Quinn singing I'm Here, shut up. Or even at this point where you have to fly up to Supreme's back and parry the flailing arms, which was hard to get to, by the way. And can the camera please just not? Now, because I already knew what to do in this fight, the battle itself wasn't hard on my second and third playthrough. But it doesn't change the fact that the game fails to tell you what you're supposed to do because of the poor targeting and maneuvering. Like seriously, why is it a struggle just to move to where I'm supposed to go? Apparently, if you completed the map and spoke with the Master Coco, he gives you hints on how to beat the final boss. But why would I need a hint at all if it was obvious how to beat the other titans in the game? Even the original end boss fight didn't take science to beat. Okay, but despite those issues, this battle against Supreme in the end was way better than that Nier Automata hacking one, and it's nothing but hype. While I was hoping for a new track from Kellen, I absolutely love his version of I'm Here, and it worked so well for this final battle. And I like they didn't do anything too drastic with Sonic's new form, and I just love how cool and confident he is throughout. And by the end, when the credits rolled, I was completely satisfied, more so than with the original ending. But hot take, I kind of prefer Sage dying at the end. NANI? Anyways, I genuinely enjoyed this DLC, and after 3 playthroughs of it, I still can't help but wonder, why was this not in the original game? In my last run, I played from the very beginning, and once I got to Ouranos Island, I immediately went into the DLC, playing it out as if it was the final part of the game. And that run was just a better experience than my first ever run of this game back when it came out. Maybe they ran out of time as usual. But here's the thing, I love Sonic Frontiers. It's definitely up there as one of my favorite Sonic games, and now with this roadmap complete, I love it a lot more. It's not perfect, and neither is this DLC, but I can tell that SEGA was really trying to make it something different and something special, and in my opinion, they succeeded. I gave the game a 7 out of 10, but now I'd bump it up to an 8 out of 10. The DLC doesn't fix everything else that the game suffers from, but it definitely leaves a better impact by the end of it. I think if you're thinking of playing Sonic Frontiers, definitely go straight into the final horizon once you're on Ouranos. It's free and it's a bit of a challenge, but it'll be worth it in the end. Again, no one asked, but those were my thoughts on the final horizon. Let me know what you guys thought down below. This was my first time doing a video like this, and if you made it this far, I really do appreciate it, and if you liked it, who knows, maybe I'll do more of these. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!
Now I'm not alone, a family of my own. I get to go home with you. Feelings deep inside come flowing from my eyes. I get to go home with you.